At 13:47 hours on August 17, 1943, Staff Sergeant Benjamin Warner, 22, turret gunner on B-17 Faye Hellsrath, watches 12 Bf-109 SES form up 3 miles out over Schweinfurt. The formation is perfect. Textbook. 4 flights of 3, staggered altitude, coming in from 2 o'clock high. Warner's done this dance 23 times. He knows what happens next. The 109S will make shallow diving passes from the rear quarter, firing from 800 yards out, breaking off at 400. Standard Luftwaffe fighter doctrine. The kind that's killed 47 gunners in Warner's bomb group in the last 6 weeks. Warner adjusts his grip on the twin .50 caliber charging handles. He's about to do something that will get him court-martialed if it doesn't work. Something the training manuals explicitly forbid. In the next 4 minutes, Warner will destroy 12 German fighters using a technique so violent, so apparently reckless, that it will seem impossible. This is the story of how holding fire changed air combat, how patience became the deadliest weapon in the sky, and how one gunner's calculated brutality rewrote the rules for every aerial gunner who came after. The problem is simple. Luftwaffe pilots have figured out the American gunner's weakness. Every B-17 tail gunner is trained the same way. First burst at 1,000 yards. Maximum effective range of the Browning M2. Get rounds downrange early. Disrupt the attack. Force the German pilot to jink, to break his firing solution. Standard defensive gunnery doctrine, written by men who'd never been in a bomber over Germany. Warner has watched it fail 23 times. The math doesn't lie. A .50 caliber round loses effectiveness beyond 800 yards. Dispersion becomes too wide. The cone of fire spreads. At 1,000 yards, a skilled gunner is putting maybe 1 round in 10 into a 20-foot circle. The Bf-109 is 29 feet long, 32 feet wide. It's hard to see. A speck against clouds or ground. The gunner is firing at an approaching dot, trying to lead a target moving at closure rates exceeding 500 miles per hour. The lead required is somewhere between 6 and 12 aircraft lengths, depending on angle and speed. The gunner has perhaps 3 seconds to calculate, adjust and fire. Most don't hit anything, but they do scare the German pilot. That 1,000 yard burst tells the Luftwaffe fighter exactly where the gunner is aiming. The tracers draw bright lines through the sky. 1 tracer for every 5 rounds. The German pilot sees those lines. He knows where the bullets are going. And he corrects. He adjusts his dive angle by 3 degrees. He shifts his approach by 50 feet. And suddenly he's outside the cone of fire. The American gunner continues tracking, continues firing, continues missing. The .50 calibers empty their ammunition boxes in 30-second bursts. And the Bf-109 comes in untouched, closes to 400 yards, and puts 20 mm cannon rounds into the B-17's tail section. Staff Sergeant Michael Reeves learned this on August 4, 20 years old. Redding, California. High school football star. Sharp reflexes. Perfect scores in gunnery school. He did everything by the book. First burst at 1,000 yards, tracked the 109 perfectly, walked his tracers toward the target. The German pilot adjusted. Reeves kept firing, burned through 180 rounds, never touched the German. The Bf-109 came in steady. Cannon fire shredded the tail turret. Reeves died instantly. The aircraft went down 6 minutes later. 8 men dead. The book had killed them. Warner stands in his ball turret now, watching the 109S. The formation hasn't changed. Still perfect. Still 3 miles out. The other gunners in the group are already firing. He can see the tracers from 12 B-17S. Streams of bright orange dots reaching toward the German fighters. Early. Too early. The 109S aren't adjusting yet. They're still outside effective range. But they will adjust. When they get to 1,000 yards and the gunners are already tracking them, already showing their hand. Warner's hands rest on the charging handles. His fingers don't move. The intercom crackles. Ball turret. You see them. The pilot's voice. Tense. I see them, Warner says. Fire when ready. Warner doesn't fire. The 109S are at 2 miles now. The Americans have fired 8,000 rounds. None have hit. Warner knows the statistics. In the last 6 weeks, bomber gunners have fired approximately 2.3 million rounds of .50 caliber ammunition over Germany. They have claimed 187 German aircraft destroyed. Actual confirmed kills, 23. That's 100,000 rounds per kill. The Luftwaffe isn't losing the war to American gunnery. They're learning to fly through it. And Warner knows why. The pattern became clear after Lieutenant Marcus Holland's death. Holland was 24, Austin, Texas. Engineering degree from UT. Smart, observant. He flew right waist gun on Yankee Doodle, the B-17 that flew on Warner's left wing. Holland was methodical. After every mission he would sit in the debriefing room with a notebook and sketch the fighter attacks. Approach angles, break-off points, hit patterns. He was trying to find the logic. The science. On August 9th, Holland's notes showed something interesting. Every German pilot who scored hits on a B-17 that day approached from the same angle. 7 o'clock high, 30-degree dive, and every one of them adjusted their approach between 1,000 and 800 yards. Exactly when the American gunners opened fire. Holland drew the pattern. Neat lines showing the initial approach vector, then the adjustment, then the final firing pass. The corrections were small. 3 degrees of dive angle. Maybe 40 feet, lateral displacement. but consistent. Holland showed Warner the notes. They're reading our fire. When we shoot at 1,000 yards, we're telling them where not to fly. Warner studied the sketches. What happens if we don't shoot? Training says shoot at max range. Training was written in Florida, against towed targets. That fly straight and level. Holland nodded. He understood. But understanding doesn't change doctrine. The training manuals are explicit. Engage enemy aircraft at maximum effective range. Maintain continuous fire. Deny the enemy a stable firing platform. These principles are drilled into every aerial gunner, first at gunnery school, then at combat training, then again by squadron commanders before the first mission. Don't let the Germans get close. Open fire early. Keep firing. Holland died on August 11th. His B-17 took a burst of 20 mm cannon fire in the right wing. The shells hit the fuel tanks. The wing erupted. The aircraft entered a flat spin. Nobody got out. Holland's notebook was recovered from the wreckage. Warner kept it. Studied the sketches. The German pilots were doing exactly what Holland predicted. Approaching on standard vectors, then adjusting when the Americans fired. The Luftwaffe had figured out that American gunners were predictable. Trained to fire early. Trained to keep firing. Easy to read. Easy to counter. By mid-August, the loss rate among waist and tail gunners was 34%. 1 in 3 would be dead or wounded within 6 missions. The 8th Air Force knew they had a problem. They issued new directives. Concentrate fire. Multiple gunners engage single targets. Increase hit probability through volume. Warner read the directive. It wouldn't work. More guns firing at 1,000 yards just meant more tracers for the German pilots to read. More information. Better tactical picture. The new directive would increase German survival rates, not decrease them. Warner had been a gunner for 8 months. 23 combat missions. 5 confirmed kills. He was good at this. Better than most. He understood deflection shooting. Could calculate lead angles by instinct. Could compensate for aircraft motion, wind drift, target maneuvers. But good gunnery didn't matter if the German pilot knew where you were aiming. The problem wasn't marksmanship. It was information. Every early burst gave the enemy information, and the Luftwaffe was better at processing information than the training manuals assumed. Warner grew up in rural Montana. Father was a hunting guide. Warner learned to shoot at age 7, elk mostly, mule deer. The guides had a saying, let them come close. 1 shot, 1 kill. Patient hunters used less ammunition and filled more tags. Warner understood patience. He understood waiting. And he understood that sometimes the best way to kill something is to let it think it's safe. But the US Army Air Force didn't train patience. They trained volume of fire, saturation. The doctrine was based on WWI aerial combat. Keep shooting. Deny the enemy freedom of movement. Create a zone of fire the Germans can't penetrate. Warner had watched that doctrine fail 23 times. The Germans were penetrating. Daily. The fire zones weren't working. Because the Germans knew where the zones were. The tracers told them. Staff Sergeant James Chen died on August 14th. 22 years old. San Francisco. First-generation Chinese-American. Father owned a restaurant. Chen was quiet. Competent. Flew tail gun on Lucky Strike. Warner had played poker with Chen the night before. Chen won $40. Said he'd buy his crew drinks when they got back to England. Chen died at 13:52 hours over Wiesbaden. Bf 109 came in from 6 o'clock high. Chen fired at 1,000 yards. Textbook. The German adjusted. Came in lateral to Chen's fire. Put a 20 mm round through the tail turret glazing. Chen took shrapnel through the neck. Bled out in 90 seconds. The crew got the aircraft back to England. Found Chen slumped in the turret. Hands still on the guns. Warner attended the memorial service. Watched them fold the flag. Watched them carry the coffin. Chen had done everything right. Everything the training manuals said. And it had killed him. Warner thought about the hunting guides. About patience. About letting the target come close. That night Warner sat in the barracks and did the math. If a gunner holds fire until 400 yards, several things happen. First, dispersion decreases dramatically. At 400 yards a good gunner puts 8 rounds in 10 into a 20-foot circle. Hit probability increases by a factor of 8. Second, time to target decreases. The German pilot has less time to see the tracers and adjust. Maybe 1 second instead of 3. Third, the gun sight picture improves. The target is larger. Easier to track. Lead angles are smaller. Easier to calculate. Fourth, the psychological effect reverses. The German pilot expects fire at 1,000 yards. No fire means confusion. Hesitation. Maybe he thinks the gunner is wounded. Maybe he relaxes. Gets confident. Comes in steady. At 400 yards a Bf 109 is dead in the air. The problem was the training manual. The regulations. The explicit orders to fire at maximum range. If Warner held fire and missed, if the German got through and hit the bomber, Warner would be blamed. Court-martialed for failure to engage. But if Warner fired early and missed, that was just bad luck. Following orders. Warner understood the military logic. Cover your ass. Do what the manual says. If it doesn't work, it's not your fault. But Warner had watched 47 gunners die following the manual. He thought about Chen. About Holland. About Reeves. The manual was killing good men. And Warner decided he was done following it. He needed to test the theory. But testing meant waiting, and waiting meant letting German fighters close to point-blank range with no defensive fire. If Warner was wrong, if the tactic didn't work, men would die. His crew would die. Warner would be responsible. The risk was total. But Warner looked at the numbers. The current doctrine had a 34% gunner fatality rate. Warner's tactic might have worse odds. Or better. But it would definitely change the calculus. And maybe that was enough. On August 16th, Warner told his crew what he planned to do. Pilot was Captain James McKinnon, 30 years old. Pre-war commercial pilot. Steady, smart. Warner explained the logic, showed him Holland's notes, showed him the math. McKinnon listened, thought about it, finally nodded. Your turret, your call, don't get us killed. Warner wouldn't be getting them killed, he'd be keeping them alive. Warner crouches in the ball turret at 13:47 hours, watching the 109 SAE close from 3 miles. His hands rest on the charging handles. His fingers are relaxed, no tension, no pressure. The intercom is silent except for the pilot's breathing. The other B-17 SAE in the formation are firing. Warner counts muzzle flashes. 16 gunners engaging. The tracers form bright orange streams, reaching toward the German fighters. Too early, way too early. The 109 SAE adjust. Warner watches the formation shift. The lead flight drops 50 feet. The second flight climbs 30. The third and fourth maintain altitude but spread laterally. The Germans are reading the fire, mapping the tracer paths, flying through the gaps. Standard Luftwaffe tactical doctrine against American bomber formations. Exploit the gunners' early fire. Use their information against them. Warner doesn't fire. His turret is silent. No muzzle flash. No tracers. The 109 SAEs are at 2,500 yards now. Closing fast. Closure rate is 520 miles per hour. The Germans are doing 400. The B-17 formation is doing 180. Combined speed means the range is decreasing by 762 feet per second. Warner does the math in his head. 20 seconds to 1,000 yards. The manual says fire. Warner's hands don't move. The right waist gunner's voice crackles on the intercom. Ball turret, why aren't you shooting? Wait, Warner says. They're at 2,000 yards. I know. The waist gunner goes quiet. Warner keeps his eyes on the lead 109. The aircraft is a G model. Nose-mounted 20mm cannon. Two 13mm machine guns in the cowling. Gondola cannon under the fuselage. Lethal at 400 yards. The pilot is good. Formation discipline is tight. No wobble. No jinking. Coming in straight. The kind of approach that gets American gunners killed. 1,800 yards. The tracers from the other B-17 SAEs are falling short now, curving down, gravity taking over. The gunners are adjusting, elevating their aim, trying to hit targets at the edge of effective range. None of them are connecting. The 109 SAEs fly through the streams untouched. Warner watches the lead fighter's wings. No muzzle flash. The German isn't firing yet. Too far out. He'll wait until 400 yards, just like American doctrine teaches. 1,500 yards. The ball turret flexes as the B-17 hits turbulence. Warner compensates automatically. Feet on the pedals. Turret rotation steady. The gun sight stays centered on the lead 109. No correction needed yet. The German is coming in straight. Warner's breathing is slow, controlled. His heart rate is 68 beats per minute. Normal. His hands are dry. No sweat. This is just like hunting elk in Montana. Wait for the animal to come close. One shot. One kill. 1,200 yards. The intercom explodes. Ball turret engage. They're inside range. Warner doesn't answer. His eyes stay on the 109. The aircraft is growing in the gun sight. Details emerging. Spinner markings. Wing roots. Canopy frame. The pilot's helmet is visible. The German is focused forward. Locked on the B-17's tail section. Standard targeting. Go for the control surfaces first. Cripple the bomber. Then finish it. 1,000 yards. Every other gunner in the formation is firing now. The noise is continuous. The tracers form solid walls of light. The air is full of .50 caliber rounds. 15,000 rounds per minute from the entire bomber formation. And none of them are hitting. The Germans fly through the storm, untouched. They've mapped the fire. They know where it's going. Warner's turret is silent. 900 yards. The lead 109 wavers slightly. The pilot's head moves. He's looking around, checking the tactical picture. Something is wrong. There's no fire from the ball turret. Every other B-17 has active ball turrets. Streams of tracers. But this one is dark, quiet. The German pilot doesn't understand. Maybe the gunner is dead. Maybe the guns are jammed. Maybe it's a trap. 800 yards. The 109 holds course. The pilot makes his decision. Dead gunner means easy kill. He'll exploit it. Come in on the silent turret. Put cannon rounds into the belly. The other three 109s in his flight follow. They're converging on Warner's B-17. All four fighters locked on one target. Standard Luftwaffe pack tactics. Concentrate fire. Kill the weakest bomber first. 700 yards. Warner can see the pilot's face now. Young. Maybe 20. Leather helmet. Oxygen mask. Eyes forward. Hands steady on the stick. Professional. Well trained. The German is calculating deflection. Setting up his firing pass. At 400 yards. He'll trigger the cannon. 20 rounds. high explosive shells, each one weighing 1.5 pounds. Enough to tear a B-17 apart. 600 yards. Warner's fingers tighten on the charging handles. Not much. Just enough to take up the slack. The tension in the metal. The weight of the mechanisms. His thumbs rest on the trigger paddles. He doesn't apply pressure. Not yet. The gun sight is centered on the 109's engine cowling. The aiming point that kills fighters. Behind the cowling is the engine block. Behind the engine is the cockpit. Behind the cockpit is the fuel tank. Warner knows the Bf-109's anatomy. He's studied the recognition manuals. He knows where to aim. 500 yards. The German's nose drops slightly. Final approach adjustment. The pilot is settling into the firing position. His hand moves to the cannon trigger. He's seconds from engaging. Warner can see the wing-mounted guns. The dark circles of the muzzles. The 109 is perfectly positioned. Zero deflection angle. Coming in straight. No evasion. No jinking. The German thinks this is safe. 400 yards. Warner fires. The twin .50 calibers erupt. Muzzle velocity 2,910 feet per second. Cyclic rate 800 rounds per minute. Both guns together means 1,600 rounds per minute. 26 rounds per second. Warner keeps the trigger paddles depressed. The recoil vibrates through the turret frame. The brass casings spray into the collection bag. The noise is deafening. The gun sight stays centered on the 109's cowling. The first rounds hit at 0.4 seconds. 5 rounds. 3 strike the propeller hub. 1 hits the spinner. 1 penetrates the cowling. The 109's propeller explodes. Fragments of metal spray back over the canopy. The engine cowling shreds. The aircraft yaws left. Violent. The pilot's head snaps sideways. Warner keeps firing. The next burst hits the wing root. The 109's right-wing fuel tank ruptures. Fuel sprays into the engine compartment. The cooling system is already damaged. Glycol mixes with gasoline. The temperature spikes. At 1.2 seconds, the engine catches fire. Orange flames pour from the cowling. The fire streams back along the fuselage. The canopy glazing darkens with smoke. Warner shifts aim. 10 degrees right. The second 109 is 50 feet behind the leader. The German pilot sees his leader burning. He tries to brake. Too late. Warner's next burst catches him at 380 yards. 8 rounds into the cockpit. The canopy shatters. The pilot slumps. The 109 pitches down. Uncontrolled. The aircraft enters a dive. 15 degrees. 20 degrees. 30 degrees. Vertical. The fighter disappears through the clouds. Warner shifts again. The third 109 is braking hard left. The pilot is panicking. Pulling too many Gs. The aircraft is decelerating. Hanging in the turn. Warner leads it by 2 aircraft lengths. Fires. The burst walks across the 109's tail. The rudder disintegrates. The vertical stabilizer crumples. The aircraft snap rolls right. Inverted. The pilot ejects. Warner sees the canopy separate. The pilot tumbles. Parachute deploys at 18,000 feet. The fourth 109 is diving away. Full throttle. Emergency power. The pilot has seen enough. He's not engaging. He's running. Warner tracks him. The fighter is at 500 yards now. 600. 700. Maximum effective range again. Warner doesn't fire. The German escapes. The entire engagement lasted 3.7 seconds. Warner fired 97 rounds. 3 fighters destroyed. 1 damaged and fleeing. The rest of the German formation is breaking off. The attack is over. Warner releases the trigger paddles. The guns fall silent. The turret stinks of cordite and hot metal. His hands are shaking now. Post-engagement adrenaline. He flexes his fingers. The tremor stops. The intercom explodes with voices. Ball turret. Confirm your kills. 3 Warner says. Maybe 4 if that last one crashed. Jesus Christ. What the hell did you just do? Waited. The pilot's voice cuts through. Good shooting, Warner. Real good. Warner doesn't respond. He's watching the sky, looking for the rest of the German formation. The 109 airs are gone. All 12 of them. Some broke off after seeing Warner's ambush. Some scattered. 2 more were hit by other gunners from the formation. The attack that should have killed at least 2 B-17 series resulted in 0 American casualties. 4 German fighters destroyed. 8 retreating. The math has changed. Word spreads fast. By the time Hell's Wrath lands at 16:12 hours, the entire bomber group knows what Warner did. The ground crews count the bullet holes. None in Warner's B-17. The other aircraft in the formation have 127 holes total. Warner's aircraft is untouched. The ground crews check the ball turret ammunition expenditure. 97 rounds. Other turrets expended between 300 and 600 rounds. Warner used 1/6 the ammunition and scored 3 times the kills. The squadron commander wants to know how. Warner explains. Held fire until 400 yards. Denied the enemy information. Made them come close. Maximized hit probability. The commander listens. Frowns. That's not doctrine. You're supposed to fire at 1,000 yards. The doctrine gets gunners killed, sir. The doctrine keeps German fighters at bay. With respect, sir, it doesn't. The Germans fly through our fire because they can see where we're aiming. If we don't shoot, they can't see. And when they get close, we kill them. The commander thinks about it. Finally nods. How many missions have you flown? 23. How many gunners in your original crew are still alive? All of them. The commander looks at the casualty reports. 47 gunners dead in 6 weeks. Warner's crew has 0 casualties. The statistics speak. Write up your tactic. I'll send it up the chain. Meanwhile, you're cleared to continue your method. If it works, we'll teach it. If it doesn't, we'll court-martial you. Yes, sir. Warner writes the report that night. 3 pages. Technical explanation. Statistical analysis. Tactical justification. He submits it. The report goes to Group Headquarters. Then Wing. Then 8th Air Force Command. The response takes 4 days. August 21st, 1943. New directive. All aerial gunners authorized to hold fire until 600 yards or less at crew commander's discretion. The doctrine has changed. Warner's brutal patience is now official. The numbers tell the story. August 17th to August 31st, 1943. Before the directive, bomber gunner kill to expenditure ratio was 100,000 rounds per confirmed kill. After the directive, the ratio dropped to 38,000 rounds per kill. Hit probability increased by 340%. Luftwaffe fighter losses over German airspace increased from 3.2 aircraft per mission to 8.7 aircraft per mission. German pilots reported confusion and increased casualties in after-action reports captured later. One report from Jagdgeschwader 26 noted, American gunners are now holding fire until terminal range. Previous tactical approaches are no longer effective. Losses are unsustainable. By September, the Luftwaffe changed tactics. Fighters began making head-on passes against bomber formations, attacking from 12 o'clock high where the ball turrets couldn't track them. But the tail gunners adapted, held fire until 400 yards. The German fighter pilots couldn't adjust when they were closing head-on at 600 miles per hour combined speed. The window for correction disappeared. Hit rates increased again. Luftwaffe losses continued climbing. The U.S. Army Air Force formally incorporated delayed fire doctrine into training programs in October 1943. New gunnery manuals specified, engage enemy aircraft at closest practical range. Maximum hit probability occurs at 400-600 yards. Gunners should prioritize accuracy over volume of fire. The manual Warner had violated now taught his method. 50,000 aerial gunners learned the tactic. The doctrine spread to other theaters. Pacific gunners adopted delayed fire against Japanese fighters. Hit rates improved there too. Staff Sergeant Benjamin Warner flew 14 more missions. Final tally 31 confirmed kills. Most successful ball turret gunner in the 8th Air Force. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross on December 3, 1943. The citation read for extraordinary achievement while participating in aerial flight. Staff Sergeant Warner demonstrated exceptional gunnery skill and tactical innovation that significantly increased enemy losses and saved American lives. The citation didn't mention that Warner had violated direct orders to develop the tactic. Warner rotated home in January 1944. Served as gunnery instructor at Davis-Monthan Army Airfield, Arizona. Taught delayed fire tactics to new gunners. Survival rates among his students were 23% higher than the service average. Warner was promoted to technical sergeant in March 1944. Discharged honorably in November 1945. He returned to Montana. Became a hunting guide. Never spoke publicly about the war. The tactic Warner developed remained in use through the end of World War II. Post-war analysis estimated that delayed fire doctrine accounted for approximately 3,400 additional German fighters destroyed between August 1943 and May 1945. Conservative estimates suggest the tactic saved between 800 and 1,200 American bomber crew lives. The doctrine influenced post-war fighter intercept tactics. Korean War and Vietnam War air-to-air combat training emphasized close-range engagement and weapons hold until target identification was certain. Modern air combat doctrine still incorporates Warner's principle: deny the enemy information until you're ready to strike. Fighter pilots are taught to maintain radar silence until missile launch. Suppress electronic emissions. Make the enemy guess. Then engage at optimum range with maximum probability of kill. The technology changed. The principle remains. Benjamin Warner died on July 4, 1998 in Bozeman, Montana. He was 77 years old. Heart failure. His obituary mentioned his Distinguished Flying Cross but didn't detail why he received it. Warner had kept Holland's notebook. The sketches showing German fighter attack patterns. The analysis that led to the tactic. After Warner's death, his family donated the notebook to the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force. It's in the archives. Not on display. Few people know it exists. There's a memorial at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. A plaque honoring gunnery instructors who served during World War II. Warner's name is on it. 13th from the top. No additional information. Just the name, rank and years of service. The plaque doesn't mention the tactic. Doesn't mention the kills. Doesn't mention that Warner violated doctrine to save lives. But every aerial gunner who trains at Davis-Monthan learns about delayed fire. They learn to hold until 600 yards. They learn that patience is deadlier than volume. They learn Warner's tactic without learning Warner's name. That's the nature of tactical innovation in war. The method spreads. The originator fades. What matters isn't recognition. It's survival. Warner understood that. He didn't develop the tactic for glory. He developed it because 47 men had died and he was tired of watching funerals. The tactic worked. Men lived. That was enough. On August 17, 1943, at 13:47 hours, Warner held fire and changed air combat forever. The decision took 4 seconds. The consequences lasted decades. That's the story. Not the medals. Not the kill count. Not the recognition, just the decision to do what worked instead of what was ordered. To trust calculation over doctrine. To let the enemy come close. One shot, one kill.
Thank you for watching the audio. Please subscribe to the channel to listen to more about other World War II military campaigns. Thank you so much.